subcontract basis of the demolition company, perhaps avoiding having to send out for bids and all that. But they would then come in and strip all saleable items from those buildings, and we could then sell them here in Fergus Falls. And it would give the people of Fergus Falls an opportunity to own and treasure something from the Kirkbride, and it would keep this stuff out of the dump. You know, it would, Fergus Falls has already got several locations that could perhaps work as a staging area. You've got all these empty buildings. Kmart, Herberger's now, Target, or their parking lots, either one of those. And then also there's the Habitat for Humanity building just down the street from the Kirkbride itself that also could perhaps be a venue for this. The sales staff used for the sale would be someone hired locally that knows Fergus Falls, knows the Kirkbride, and whatever. The inventory stream that would be coming out of the Kirkbride could be lengthy and consistent for months, and would then go to the staging area, and this could almost be like a festival of a period of time for the city of Fergus Falls, of people coming to purchase these items. There is no cost to the city for this when a salvage company is used like this. They give you money, they don't take it. The staging, typically, well, some of the stuff that would be taken out of there would be all the doors and windows and those transoms that are above the windows. And keep in mind that all this stuff that's in there has been out of the weather. It's been protected. It's over 100 years old. It's high quality wood that you can't get in today's market. The pine that you would purchase in today's market is nothing near the pine or whatever hardwoods. Pine's not hardwood, but whatever woods were used in the construction of the Kirkbride. But the doors, the windows, all the any architectural elements that are in there, staircases, whatever. And if any kind of luck, I don't know if it has a brick facade there on those buildings or not, but that brick would be of the appropriate era where it's possible to reuse it and use it for the curb appeal of the Kirkbride. You would use it for the streetscape, for the parking areas, for sidewalks, and all that. It just has to be cleaned up. It's different than the brick, as you probably know, that's in that 1960s creation that was built. That brick won't work for a salvage operation. It's inferior to be reused again.
Ma'am, we generally have a 3-minute limit on these.
I've
talked for 4, so if you would finish up
I have?
quickly. Yes, you have.
You're doing fine. You're doing all right. You're doing fine.
Okay. But there are 2 items that the company itself should look at independent of the salvage company, and that's those gazebos. Those gazebos should be saved by the city and relocated to a park somewhere or something in the city. And you could have the high school shop class refurbish them, and they could use it for college credits, or you could have someone working on their merit badge for the Eagles Scout program, do it. But the marketing part of this thing would be for JLL, commercial real estate company that has over 200,000 employees and 200 worldwide locations. Over 65 of their locations are in major cities within the United States, and Minneapolis office has been recommended by as an ideal agent to meet your marketing requirements. And the person I spoke to that recommended JLL is Amazon's, has the sales location for Amazon. The Kirkbride could be marketed in 10, 40,000 square foot increments or as a whole mass. And I'm trying to race now that I'm on my time. Wilmer, Minnesota had a similar situation that we are going through here now when their state hospital was closed back in 2005. I learned from Joanna Schrupp of Midwest Technologies there in Wilmer that a private technology and bioscience company or people were already working in Wilmer when that state hospital there closed. And they came up with the concept of using that state hospital as their facility for their own use. And they set about to make it happen. It took them a year to do it, but they worked with the state of Minnesota, with the city of Willmar and others, and bought 35 buildings and 100 acres for $1 million. And to date, they have spent $18 million fixing up this property, refurbishing it, landscaping, and all kinds of things. And they have 35 business tenants in these buildings and 450 employees that work there. And when I asked Joanna, I said, well, what do they do about commercial facilities? They've got this little tiny airport at Willmar, and she says, well, that's not a problem. They keep their corporate jets there. And then they use the commercial facilities in St. Cloud an hour and a half away when they need to.
Ma'am, we've been talking now for 7 minutes, it's after 5:30.
Okay, anyway.
We need to start the meeting now.
I am sorry, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mara. Good evening, everyone. I'll call on Pastor Jim Johnson of Calvary Free Lutheran Church to lead us in our invocation, along with Girl Scouts of Troop 30067 to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you for another beautiful day. Lord, you are the giver of every good and perfect gift, and so we give you thanks for all of the blessings. Lord, I thank you for the privilege we have of living here in this beautiful city. I thank you tonight for all of these elected officials and the city staff and employees. Lord, thank you for their work, and I pray that you would bless their homes, their families, and their efforts as part of our city. Father, your word also tells us that you are the one who practices steadfast love and justice and righteousness in the earth. Lord, we pray that that would be our experience. We see that in the giving of your Son, Jesus, to offer us forgiveness and life. And Lord, we pray for the decisions, the plans, the work in this meeting and each day here in our city. Lord, that would be the reality, that the practice of steadfast love and justice and righteousness would be seen. And we pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
It's 5:30, May 7th, 2018, and I'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council to order. Roll call, please.
Thompson.
Here.
Anderson.
Here.
Speedo.
Here.
Hicks.
Yep.
Pepper.
Here.
Fish.
Here. Here.
Hooper.
We have a quorum. First item of business this evening is the approval of the agenda, and I'll call on City Administrator Andrew Bremseth. Do we have any additions or corrections to the agenda?
Yes, thank you, Your Honor, members of the council. Tonight, our friends at the podium here are going to help us in a proclamation declaring May 25th as National Poppy Day. And so that should be added under petitions and communications as item number one.
Got it. With that, is there a motion to approve the amended agenda?
So moved.
Thank you, Jim. Second. Tom, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, that motion carries. Then, moving on to petitions and communications, we have Girl Scouts from Troop 30067 to help us with the proclamation tonight, so, girls, take it away.
Whereas America is the land of freedom, preserved and protected willingly and freely by citizen soldiers.
Whereas millions who have answered the call to arms have died on the field of battle.
Whereas a nation at peace must be reminded of the price of war and debt owed to those who have died in war.
Whereas the red poppy has been designated as a symbol of sacrifice of lives in all wars, and
Whereas the American Legion Auxiliary has pledged to remind America annually of this debt through the distribution of the memorial flower. There, Therefore, we Girl Scouts Troop 30067, along with Ben Shire, Mayor of Fergus Falls, Minnesota, do hereby proclaim the 25th day of May 2018 as Poppy Day and ask that all citizens pay tribute to those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in the name of freedom by wearing the memorial poppy on this day.
Thank you, girls.
Thank you.
We have one more proclamation, and I won't try to outdo that one, but we do have a proclamation for National Tourism and Travel Week. And whereas travel has a positive impact on Fergus Falls, Minnesota, and the nation, it also impacts traveler well-being, our image, and business productivity. Whereas Visit Fergus Falls invests $63,000 annually in travel promotion, focusing on overnight stays and returning $5.8 million in traveler spending and $572,000 in state and local taxes. And whereas visitors come to Fergus Falls for its vibrant arts, natural environment, history, and special events, and welcoming visitors from near and far will always be a priority of the travel industry in Fergus Falls. Now therefore I, Ben Shire, Mayor of Fergus Falls, do hereby proclaim May 6th through the 12th, 2018 is National Travel and Tourism Week in Fergus Falls, Minnesota, and urge the citizens of Fergus Falls to join me in this special observation and recognition. The next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. There's a copy in your packet. There's also a copy on the screens. If anyone has any item that they would like to discuss individually, we'll pull that off. If not, I would entertain a resolution approving the consent agenda.
I'll make that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Anthony. Thank you, Brent. Roll call, please.
Thompson.
Yes.
Armstrong.
Yes.
Speedo.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Pafford.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Next item is a first reading of Ordinance 67, 7th Series, the rezoning of a portion of the Damica Drive from RA to R1, and I believe we just need that introduced. Is that correct, Rolf? We need someone to introduce that this evening?
So moved.
Thank you, Scott. Item number 2 is a first reading of Ordinance 68, 7th Series, amending City Code 6.23, dealing with weeds and native vegetation.
I'll introduce that.
Will you introduce that, Rod? Thank you. Item number 3 is a resolution supporting local decision-making authority. Andrew, did you want to talk to that at all?
Real briefly, I'll do it real briefly, Your Honor, members of the council. Cities all across the state of Minnesota are passing resolutions just like the one before you tonight, reminding legislators in St. Paul that we feel that cities and local leaders are in the best position to determine a lot of policy decisions that impact our local residents. We at the local government level are the most intimate level of government. We interact with our residents and our citizens on a daily basis, and feel that the state legislature should keep that in mind as they're making policy during the legislative session. As I mentioned, there's been a couple hundred cities, or over 100 cities, well on their way to all the cities in the state passing this resolution. So we'll pass this on to the legislature and to the League of Minnesota Cities.
Are there any-
I will offer that resolution.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll second, Your Honor.
Thank you, Justin. Any questions of Andrew? Comments? Roll call, please.
Thompson.
Yes.
Armstrong.
Yes.
Speedo.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Pafford. Fish.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Item number 4 is a resolution authorizing the mayor to accept the mayor's challenge to end veteran homelessness. This is pretty straightforward. You have a memo in your packet. It was brought to my attention at the annual mayor's convention, and I was urged by fellow mayors who have taken up this challenge. And if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. If not, look for that resolution.
We'll offer that.
Thank you, Jim.
I'll second.
Thank you, Tom. Roll call, please.
Thompson.
Yes.
Armstrong.
Yes.
Speedo.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Pafford.
Yes.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Item I is the presentation of claims. This evening, we have claims in the amount of $1,841,522.35. And if we have any questions, we'll direct those to our finance director. Not?
Make the motion, move ahead, or resolution?
Resolution.
Oh, oh,
Scott?
sorry.
Second.
Jesus. Tired.
Resolution by
I'll offer
Scott.
resolution, yes.
Second by
Second.
Brent.
Oh, I'm tired.
Roll call, please.
Thompson.
Yes.
Armstead.
Yes.
Skeeter.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Evans.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Rachel.
Yes.
Hooper.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. There are no board, committee, or department reports this evening. Under reports from staff and administrative officers, City Administrator Andrew Bremstes has an economic development discussion.
Yes, Your Honor, members of the council, thank you. I hope to keep the pace that we're on here as well, so. Just wanted to bring a discussion forward. In light of the retail trends that we're seeing nationwide, which have especially impacted us locally, I think it's important to talk about how we approach and handle economic development and look at maybe doing that in a different way. Not only to address some of those concerns, but also to show our community that we take these changes to the retail climate very seriously. It was mentioned during the open forum again tonight that there's vacant retail buildings, and it's something that we seriously want to deal with. A few months ago, the mayor and a couple members of city staff traveled up to Bemidji and had a chance to visit with Greater Bemidji, which is their economic development authority, to better understand their model and how they have been successful under this model outside of the city. And since this trip a handful of months ago, I've been thinking of ways in which we can position ourselves to be most successful here in Fergus Falls. And that's the reason I'm starting this conversation tonight. But economic development has several definitions, some of which are competing or conflicting. But tonight, this conversation, I'm focusing on business and retail recruitment and how we as a city or community can improve in this regard. The Bemidji model that I just referenced and many of the other models that I've been exposed to personally have an organization that is independent of the city government that is doing this retail recruitment work. While the city in all of these cases plays some sort of financial role, the separation really allows for someone to do this work without the red tape and, excuse me, but politics generally associated with governments. So, further, the separation allows for the private sector to play a role, helping to fund the effort and provide market understanding and needs associated with the given community. Currently, the way we operate today, the city fully funds the Economic Improvement Commission, which in my opinion, is missing that private sector buy-in. To raise this concern does not mean that we aren't doing things well in terms of economic development. In fact, our loan programs are healthy and being utilized. Our manufacturing retention and expansion program is strong. Our workforce development efforts have shown progress, and many other initiatives continue onward to further improve the quality of the community. However, I feel there's a gap in active recruitment and retail focus. In my mind, it's time to begin to give this a more dedicated and appropriate focus. And while there is no one-size-fits-all model, because community dynamics are different in every community, whether we want to believe it or not, we should look to models of success and not be afraid to identify and make the necessary changes needed for our city, Fergus Falls. To steal a term from the team up in Bemidji, we need to really seriously look to recalibrate our economic development strategy when it comes to retail recruitment. And the reason I raised this issue tonight is I would like to begin to explore ways in which we can transition business and retail development into a different setting, really calling on our community partners, especially in the private sector, to help in this effort. So my request from the group tonight is to get authorization to begin working with the appropriate stakeholders to identify the appropriate public-private partnership for our community and outline the steps necessary to move in that direction. And I envision over the coming days having a real robust discussion with the EIC, having a discussion with our legal team to talk about process and legal obligations of the agreements that we have with the EIC, various private sector entities and stakeholders, and ultimately the Port Authority, who as an organization has quite a bit of power that can help in regards to retail and business recruitment and those types of activities. So again, my request tonight is authorization to begin working on this, and my intention is to come back as quickly as possible with recommendations and steps forward to look at how we can better position ourselves in the future.
Anyone have any questions, comments?
Good.
Yep, good idea.
I think, obviously, I think we're all in the same camp, I think. So I think with that, I would make either You want a motion, or just?
Yeah, let's give a motion
Motion.
directed to Anthony, or Andrew.
I would say I'd make a motion that the city administrator continue and explore the discussion about how we can transition the Economic Improvement Commission into something more independent. And
I'll second that, Your Honor.
Any further discussion, comments, questions? You good? Anything from staff? Everyone good? All right. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you, Andrew. Under old and unfinished business, first we will have an update on Public Improvements 9692, the RTC Phase 1D construction project. And Bruce, are you going to start us out on that?
Yes. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council members. I have a short PowerPoint presentation. The first slide is showing what the site will look like after the Phase 1 removals are completed. Building 30, adjacent to Building 32, is mostly removed, and I'll talk about that a little bit more in just a couple minutes. Building 11 is completely removed up to the tunnel connecting it to Building 32. They're in the process of removing the utility tunnel between Building 23 and 25. And I believe they may have started on the tunnel between 25 and 27 this week. And the tunnels between going to Building 31 and to Building 5 will wait until the road restrictions are off, so that they're able to get in and take care of the roads and get them all restored as quickly as possible, so to minimize the disruption for traffic around the campus. Next slide, please. Okay, in consideration of Phase 2 deconstruction of the campus, we're currently looking at buildings 3, 25, and 32 of being removed as part of Phase 2. With that in mind, all of the power currently goes from the electrical substation, which is just west of Building 32, into Building 32 at 2,400 volts, and then is distributed to 2,400 volt rooms scattered throughout the campus. There's one in Building 25, one in Building 27, and there's one in Building 22. As part of the Phase 1 project, we were going to restore the power back to the buildings with on the lines that are shown dashed as red, to reconnect that 2,400 volt power. Looking forward at Phase 2, with Building 32 coming down, the plan is to also remove the electrical substation, and then as part of the redevelopment would be to work with Otter Tail Power to bring 483 phase in to supply each building as it becomes redeveloped and repurposed, because 483 phase or 480 single phase is more current with the type of, with the power that's currently being brought to buildings rather than dealing with 2,400 volt power. So what we've asked Landwehr, who's doing Phase 1, is to give us a cost credit to not reconnect where the tunnels are being removed, and we'll leave the power off to those buildings until they do move forward with the developers, and then that information would be provided to the developers that, you know, once the buildings start to be repurposed, that it's their job to communicate with Otter Tail Power to get the power to them, and then they would size it based on whatever they're doing for redevelopment. So as demolition progressed with taking Building 30 down, discovered that Building 32 was in worse condition than we thought. This shows the majority of Building 30 removed. In some areas, when they went to apply sheathing to cover up the holes in the roof, they needed to use 5-inch screws to get into wood that was sound enough to hold anything. We also have some cracking occurring at the west wall, at the north corner, or the north end of the west wall, and when you get around the north wall, on that west corner, there's cracking in the brick. Basically, it's multi-width brick on all of these buildings. There's basically no reinforcing. They just used header courses to lock the multi-widths together. And part of the challenge with all of these buildings is when they painted them back in, we think in the late 40s, early 50s, they allowed all the moisture to be sealed in inside the paint and just work away at the mortar. And so now when the paint is removed, the mortar basically falls out because all of the cement has gone away with all the moisture that's detached it from the sand. So we can go to the next slide. As you can see by this side, the roof has been covered up on 32, so we've closed it up, or Landwehr's closed it up as best as they can to prevent additional moisture intrusion into building 32. The foundation walls are in on the east wall and the north wall for their full height still. On the west wall, they've taken about half of the concrete foundation wall down. And as they were taking the first level slab out away from building 32, we discovered, unbeknownst to us prior to that, was when they built building 30, they actually cut out brick and poured the floor slab into the brick. And so when they're taking it apart, and Landwehr has done a very good job of making sure that they don't damage 32. They started with a big wrecking ball and realized that was creating too much vibration. They went to a smaller wrecking ball to try and get some of the concrete out. Some of this concrete was 42 inches thick. They had the equipment sitting on it in building 30. So they've done saw cutting. Our structural engineer is reviewing the options for trying to stabilize the exterior on building 32 so we can continue taking building 30 down and get it out of here. And we'll have that recommendation prepared next week to submit. But in the meantime, the work on building 30 removal has stopped. And they've got plenty of other things that they can work on with getting the utility tunnels taken out. One of the things that they are doing this week as they're removing the tunnel between 25 and 27 is they are cutting out the skylight that's kind of right at the junction with the tunnel that runs east and west between 25 and 27, goes up to 29. And that's going to be taken out, salvaged as a single unit to give to the museum, along with the tunnel, along with the skylight that's on the tunnel that goes to building 5. There's a removable skylight there that's will also be given to the museum. So, next one. And so this is also part of building 30 that remains. There are more connections into building 32 than what we thought there were. So once again, as soon as we can figure out a plan for stabilizing building 32 that we know is going to be safe for the contractor to get back in, we'll continue to do our best to remove that without creating further injury to building 32 until we can move forward with phase 2 of demolition. And then this is just a close-up of what the roof on building 32 looked like when they took the dormers and the other materials off that were connected to it from building 30. One final slide, so that's it. Any questions?
Any questions? Brian?
Just want to make note too, under the revisions for the power, we'll still be able to maintain power to the Kirkbride Tower through that central corridor as well. So we still will have availability where we're currently using that in the tower. That's what, just to remind, so it's just the east and west attached.
Sure, thanks, Brian. So, question, Bruce, so obviously I think you mentioned that there's a lot more precision maybe that needed to get rid of 32, right? Or
To take down building 30 required Landwehr to spend a little bit more time doing that, but it's,
It's not going to be, it's,
no
in the end,
changes
it's,
are coming back. They're not coming back asking for additional monies. They've been very
Okay.
nice to work with and understand the nature of the entire campus being on the historic register, and we made sure that, you know, they were aware of that before bids were received, and we again restated that during the pre-construction meeting that the buildings that are shown to remain have to remain and they have to be protected.
thanks, Bruce. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Item number 2 is an update on RTC East and West detached development, and we'll look for a resolution authorizing staff to initiate a survey, and I'll call on Amy Baldwin.
Great. Thank you, Mayor, council members. If you recall, on March 19th, there was the approval of a letter of intent with the development group related to East and West detached at the Regional Treatment Center. And since that point, there have been regular communications with the developer, the development team, and city staff and others to continue to advance this. We feel there's been very positive progression in looking at other financing tools. For instance, the Federal Home Loan Bank has had a preliminary review of an application for a housing program grant that will be finalized here shortly. They have a grant writer who's been working on that funding piece, the preliminary work for the housing tax credits that will be pursued with final application in June for the 4% program for that tax credit piece. And to continue to advance that work and make sure we're fully defining the areas as we work on other components, we are asking tonight to receive authorization to initiate a survey to, again, further define this physical space in which the developer would be looking at for their parking areas and other outdoor green space associated with the East and West attached, and as well to authorize a 30-day extension to the letter of intent as we work through that and start the preparation of the development and purchase agreement that would come before the council here in short order as well. We want to have that legal description put in place as part of that agreement, so we want to get that started and continue the work. We have had SHPO representatives be on site and visit the facility as well to talk a little more about the overall campus, but in addition to the specific plans of the developer for those 2 buildings. In addition, the architect group with the development team has been in regular communications with SHPO and other agencies, including Minnesota Housing in regards to those housing tax credits that I referenced, and the other appropriate agencies that would need to be involved. So we feel there's very positive progress, but would be looking for an official authorization to proceed with that survey work and to extend the LOI for a 30-day period.
Questions?
I'll second, Your Honor.
Resolution in a second, and we can do both of those in
Do we have a cost estimate?
for the survey work?
Yep.
We're currently obtaining those estimates, but I would say less, just on a high range, under $10,000. We'll be able to use funds that we have existing from the state cash pool.
Just have a question on the, do we have any indication on when we're going to have word back from Parks and Trails on the,
National Park Service?
yeah?
Your Honor, members, I don't have an exact timeline, but the architectural historian that we engaged is actively working on a report which will then be submitted to SHPO and the National Park Service. They are working with that June deadline in mind for that tax credit application that A.B. referenced a few minutes ago, and all indications are that they're going to be able to give us an answer by that point.
Okay. Thanks, Andrew.
Any other questions? If not, roll call, please.
Thompson.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Speedo.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Capper.
Yes.
Finn.
Yes.
Rachels.
Yes.
Hoover.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Thank you, Amy.
Thanks, Amy.
Item number 3 is an update on RTC legislative request. And I'll call on City Administrator Andrew Bremseth.
Yes, Your Honor. Members of the council, just real quickly here, I wanted to give everybody a heads up that we're 2 weeks away from the end of the legislative session. There's a lot of work that needs to be done between now and then. They haven't done much that's gotten through both bodies and the governor, so there's a lot of uphill climbing here at the end of the session. I personally don't envision any way that they get their work done in time, and so I'm optimistic that the governor would in fact call a special session to allow that to happen. But we'll know more in 2 weeks at the council meeting. The Senate version of the bonding bill may have came out today. I'm behind today. Anybody in the audience know? Otherwise, it's likely going to come out tomorrow. So we'll know more after that bill comes out. And right now, the target of the legislature is about $850 million approximately. The governor's at $1.5 billion. So there's certainly some room for that bonding bill to grow over the next couple weeks, and I think it will. I think it'll approach that $1 billion mark, but you know, everything's still up in the air at this point, and we continue to stay in contact with our legislators, and our lobbyist, Joel Carlson, continues to work hard and feel good about the requests that we have in front of them. The legislature has shown a great deal of interest in the development project that Amy just referenced. They've had a lot of questions about that development project, and in fact, I've had some legislators request the letter of intent that we just addressed. So certainly favorable signs in regards to that development and the legislature's response to that development opportunity. So in 2 weeks when we have a council meeting, I hope to have good news. But I'm guessing we're going to be talking about a special session at that point in time. So we'll see.
Thank you, Andy. Any questions on that from anyone in the council? Finally, item number 4 is an update on the Friends of the Kirkbride tax exempt status. Rolf, did you want to comment on?
Sure. Last session, you asked that I check into the status of the Friends of the Kirkbride tax exempt status. Check the IRS website. They are not listed. I therefore sent a letter to the registered agent at the registered address for the Friends of the Kirkbride and requesting a copy of their determination letter from the IRS, and I did not or have not received a response. So.
So I received that. I did receive so I talked to someone today, and they showed me they wanted to give me an update, and I told them that I would pass that along. And evidently there was a check, and they showed me the copy of the canceled, or the check that came back. It was for the wrong amount, and they showed me the letter and the postage and the signing from the IRS that they had received the check. So I think it's in the works. I don't have any reason to believe it's not, but you know, Rolf did his. It's not currently. That's what the status is.
Right. A pending 501c3 entity is not a 501c3
Exactly.
entity.
Right. Any questions? Yeah.
So they advertised they were tax exempt, you know, when 3 years ago or 2 years ago, I believe, you could write off your donations and stuff, and they weren't. So what happens to that? How's that work, and what?
If I recall, it's my understanding the Otter Tail County Historical Society was acting as the entity that received donations, and it was received through them, which is a 50
Right, okay.
tax exempt.
That's right.
All right, we'll move along. There is no new business this evening. Under miscellaneous announcements, our next committee of the whole meeting will be May 16th at 7 a.m. The next regularly scheduled council meeting is May 21st at 5:30 p.m. May 10th at Legacy Hall, there is a Kent Kruger, Minnesota author and award-winning author. Kent Kruger is going to be giving a talk, and I believe it's 7 p.m. at Legacy Hall. I'm sticking with that. It's 7 p.m. And the next day, Friday, May 11th, right here in City Council chambers, the Heritage Preservation Commission is hosting a presentation by Angela Christie, who's an attorney with Fagery Baker Daniels, and she has experience and expertise and experience in multifaceted historic preservation funding projects. And so the Heritage Preservation Commission has invited us. They would like the City Council to be in attendance along with the Planning Commission. So it's just an informational session. It's just similar to some other sessions we've done. So anyway, that's 2 p.m. Friday, May 11th, right here in the council chambers, and I would encourage, and it's open to the public as well, of course, and I would encourage the council. I know 2 p.m. Friday can be a little tricky, but I'm hoping that most, if not all of us, can be here at that event. Justin, did you have a?
I just didn't hear the time. I wanted to make sure.
Friday,
You
May
got
11th,
it.
2 p.m.
No, I heard it after you said it.
Stick with that one, too.
I didn't know if I missed it or you're just holding suspense, that's all.
All right. So we will adjourn to a closed meeting as permitted by the attorney-client privilege to discuss real estate negotiations regarding the dairy property. And then we will not, the city council will not reconvene, but the port authority.
City council will.
Okay, city council will, and then a port authority meeting will also convene after that. So the city council reconvene and then a port authority meeting. So with that, we will adjourn to closed session.